She's invisible. No boys, no confessions, no attention. Just a front row seat to watching her gorgeous best friend get swarmed every single day. But when she accidentally discovers the coldest guy in school's secret double life, everything she thought she wanted gets flipped completely upside down.
So this girl Meow is standing at the train station watching her best friend Riri get absolutely swarmed by boys, and she's dying inside. They're asking for her line ID, inviting her to Disneyland, telling her how cute she looks in the Sakura High uniform. And Meow? She's just standing there like a background character in her own life, seething with jealousy. Riri is genuinely stunning and everyone knows it, but what kills Meow is that Riri doesn't even care about any of this attention. Meow watches her friend's face closely. Riri's expression is unreadable, almost bored. Her friend Mugi notices too, quietly deciding whether to step in and do the usual to rescue Riri from the crowd. The train ride home is where Meow gets real with herself. She tells Riri that watching all these boys confess to her constantly makes her wish someone would fall for her like that someday. Riri's caught off guard by the honesty, and the moment hangs there between them before Mugi's stop comes, and she hops off with a quick goodbye. Meow's left holding a lip gloss she and Riri bought together, staring at it on the train. Riri had said the cute color suits Meow more, but Meow doesn't have the confidence to actually wear it. She keeps turning it over in her hands, feeling like something meant for prettier girls than her. High school's barely started, and it's already exhausting for Riri. Boys have been confessing non-stop since middle school, and now they've followed her to Sakura High. Meow and Mugi are on the morning train together discussing it, and Mugi can't believe Meow hasn't even talked to a single guy in her class yet. When Mugi asks if she even wants a boyfriend, Meow practically shouts that she does. That's when things get interesting. A boy from another school approaches Meow in the hallway, and her heart nearly stops. He says he sees her and Riri at the station sometimes, and asks if they know each other. He wants to know if she's friends with Riri-chan from Sakura High, and could she maybe introduce them? It's so embarrassing she could die. This is what always happens. People approach her just to get closer to Riri. She fumbles through her excuses, saying Riri has a boyfriend, that Riri doesn't like this kind of thing, that she can't just hand out her friend's contact info. The boy keeps pushing, smiling, not getting the hint. Meanwhile, there's this guy in her class, Kurose, and he's been watching this whole disaster unfold. He's the quiet, intimidating type, the kind of boy who makes girls nervous just by existing. He drops her lip gloss, which clatters to the floor, and she freezes mid-sentence trying to process what just happened. Kurose picks up the lip gloss and looks at it like he's analyzing evidence. He mutters that this cute color suits Riri more, which is basically the worst thing he could possibly say to Meow right now. She's already insecure about living in Riri's shadow, and this boy she barely knows just confirmed her deepest fear, without even trying. Meow is furious. She's ranting internally about how he didn't have to say that, how the fact that he's handsome makes it even more infuriating. She apologizes out loud for being an outsider who gave her opinion. But inside she is absolutely losing it, fists clenched, rage bubbling over. She can't calm down, so she does what any reasonable person would do. She decides to stress eat her feelings away. She pulls up her phone's memo app, a curated list of cafes she's been meaning to visit, and picks the first one. It's a little far, but that's fine. She's on a mission to forget about that jerk Kurose. She finds the cafe easily enough, but something's off. The place she was looking for, Cafe Roman, seems to have closed down. In its place is something called Night Cafe, the cafe for princesses, decorated with roses and ornate signage. She stares at the storefront, wide-eyed, trying to figure out what she just walked into. A guy in a full night costume spots her hesitating outside and invites her in. She's so startled she can barely speak. Is he staff? Why is he dressed like that? He reassures her it's just a normal cafe, nothing weird, and somehow she finds herself walking through the door anyway. Inside, it's even more intense than she expected. Every server is dressed as a knight, and they're all gorgeous. One of them, a dark-haired knight, smiles warmly and serves her dessert, and Meow's brain short-circuits. She's flipping through a menu full of photo cards of the staff, heart pounding, completely forgetting why she was upset. She's particularly drawn to one knight they call Rose-kun, the only one without a photo card. She thinks about coming back until he agrees to have one made, laughing to herself about it. The place is far from home, but honestly, she might become a regular just for this ridiculous, wonderful experience. But then she notices something that makes her stomach drop. One of the knights looks familiar. Way too familiar. He's wearing a costume, and he's keeping his distance. But that face, that cold expression. She does a double take, her jaw practically hitting the floor as recognition hits. Back at school, everything clicks into place. Kurose has been watching her all day. She catches him glancing at her during class, following her movements in the hallway. He was even lurking nearby when she was cleaning the restroom after school. She clutches her bag and mutters that she'd never tell anyone his secret, scrubbing the floor furiously. Then he appears right behind her. He calls out Meow-san, like it's the most natural thing in the world, and she nearly jumps out of her skin. He's standing there looking nervous for the first time ever, saying he has something he wants to tell her, asking if she's free. Her classmate, the scary, cold, handsome Kurose, is asking to talk privately. His friends corner him afterward, demanding answers. They tell him a girl waited around just to confess to him, and he completely blew her off. He says he told her he wasn't going, like it's nothing. When Meow overhears this exchange, she's stunned, and then he turns, looks directly at her, and introduces himself, Kurose, and then he says it, the line that changes everything. He looks at Meow with those cold, unreadable eyes and tells her plainly, "I hate you." She's frozen. His friends are horrified, but there's something in the way he says it, something in the way he's been watching her all day, that makes it feel less like rejection and more like a door cracking open to something she doesn't understand yet. Chapter 2 opens, and the new school year is already a nightmare for Meow. She's got a bigger problem than boys now. Riri goes to a different high school, which means for the first time in her life, Meow is completely alone. She's been glued to Riri since they were kids, and now she's sitting in class watching everyone else already forming friend groups while she spirals into full loner panic mode. Meanwhile, Kurose is doing what he does best, rejecting people without a shred of emotion. 4 pretty girls from another class just asked for his line ID, and he hit them with a flat, ice-cold no. The whole class is buzzing about it, whispering about how harsh he is, and wondering if the muscles in his face are literally broken, and Meow's just watching from across the room thinking this guy is unreal. She notices something though. Kurose seems just as alone as she is. He sits by himself reading while everyone chatters around him, and something about that isolation feels weirdly reassuring to her. Then, out of nowhere, he looks up, catches her staring, and beckons her over with a single gesture that makes her entire body freeze. He confronts her directly, asking what she wants, and she blurts out that she didn't tell anyone about his part-time job at the night cafe. He calls her staring creepy, which sends her reeling, but she fires back that she hasn't breathed a word to anyone. The tension between them is this bizarre mix of hostility and something neither of them can name yet. Meow tries to explain herself. She just thought they were both loners and maybe had something in common. Kurose shuts that down immediately, calling it stupid, which only makes Meow angrier. She snaps back that he's acting awfully bossy for someone whose secret she's keeping, and for once, he doesn't have a comeback ready. Then 2 guys roll up to Kurose like they've been friends forever, and Meow's jaw hits the floor. He has friends? This guy who looks like he's never smiled a day in his life actually has a social circle? Even worse, his friend casually asks if Meow knows about Kurose's job, and Kurose just says, yeah, meaning she's not even special for knowing his secret. His friends are loud, energetic, and the complete opposite of Kurose's frozen personality. They spot Meow standing there and immediately recognize her as their classmate, though they can't even remember her name at first. One of them teases Kurose about being with a girl, and Meow wants to disappear into the floor. Meow gets honest with herself during a quiet moment. She tells Riri she's serious about wanting a boyfriend, that she's always wanted one. She admits that seeing happy couples makes her jealous, that their happiness looks dazzling from the outside. And the vulnerability in her voice is so raw, it catches even her off guard. She asks herself if she really is just jealous, and the answer stings. Back at school, Meow decides she needs to actually make friends in her class, so she psyches herself up and approaches a group of girls. They're chatting about some IG live she didn't see, and she tries her best to join in, smiling way too hard, asking what they're talking about. It crashes and burns. They're polite, but the conversation moves on without her, and she's left standing there deflated. That's when a new girl with glasses slams into the scene, literally dropping a book on the desk with a thud. She asks Meow if she listens to a band called Fake, and just like that, Meow has her first real connection in this classroom. The girl's energy is infectious, and completely different from the popular crowd Meow just failed to crack. Mugi asks her new classmate what kind of guy she's looking for, and the answer comes easy. Someone nice, who smiles a lot and is cheerful. Her friend Riri laughs and points out that's basically the polar opposite of Kurose. Meanwhile, everyone around them is pairing up, dating already, and Meow can't figure out how they're all moving so fast while she's still stuck at square one. That's when someone suggests mixers, and Meow's ears perk up. She's never been to one, but the idea plants itself in her brain and won't let go. If she can't meet someone naturally, maybe a mixer is exactly what she needs. A structured setting where being awkward might actually be okay, or at least expected. So Meow ends up at a group hangout, karaoke with boys from another school, and one of the guys is immediately into her. He's friendly, smiles constantly, asks Riri if Meow's his type. On paper, he's exactly what she asked for. Nice, cheerful, handsome, but something feels off and she can't figure out what it is. The guy keeps getting closer, leaning in during songs, sitting too near on the couch, and Meow's internal alarm bells start ringing. He suggests they ditch the group and leave together, just the two of them, and the friendliness suddenly doesn't feel so friendly anymore. Meow freezes, unsure how to handle the situation without making things awkward for Riri. She bolts. She literally grabs her stuff and runs, apologizing to no one in particular, her heart hammering as she escapes into the street. She's panicking, telling herself this is wrong. Even if someone's cool or her ideal type, she can't just leave with a stranger like that. The rain is pouring down and she's standing outside the karaoke place completely shaken. And then, there he is, Kurose K, walking through the rain like he materialized out of her worst nightmare. They stare at each other in the downpour, and something about seeing his familiar grumpy face actually calms her down. She asks what he said to the guy inside, because apparently it looked serious, and Kurose just stands there silently. Back at school, the dynamic between them starts shifting in ways Meow doesn't expect. The classmates notice Kurose actually talks to her, him, the guy who doesn't talk to anyone, and the whispers spread like wildfire. Girls are shocked. Guys are confused, and Meow insists loudly that they are absolutely not close, not at all, while Kurose stands behind her saying nothing. Then Kurose does something that stops her mid-sentence. He holds up the lip gloss, the same one she's been too insecure to wear, the one Riri said suited cute girls better. He looks at it, then looks at her, and with the faintest hint of a smile says it looks good on her. The sparkles in the air might be her imagination, but the warmth flooding her chest definitely isn't. Meow short-circuits. She refuses to try it on, saying there's no way. He'll definitely say something harsh. She doesn't have the confidence. She'll literally die of embarrassment. Kurose, deadpan as ever, says that's exactly why he wants to see it. She calls him a demon. He doesn't deny it. And the bickering between them has this completely different energy now. Less hostile. More electric. He holds the lip gloss out to her one more time, and the look on his face cracks everything wide open. She's blushing so hard she can barely see straight, stammering his full name like a curse and a prayer at the same time. Whatever this thing between them is, it just stopped being something she can ignore. And from the way Kurose is looking at her, he knows it too. Riri calls Meow from outside the karaoke place, panicking because her friend just disappeared. She apologizes for introducing Meow to a weird guy and asks if she's okay, but Meow can barely answer. She's standing in the rain at someone's house, her heart hammering so loud she's terrified it'll give her away. She mumbles that she's at someone she knows and promises to call back later. Kurose found her soaking wet in the downpour and apparently decided she couldn't take the train looking like a drowned rat. He's carrying her on his back through the rain, drenched himself, and Meow is protesting the entire time. She's too heavy. She'll feel bad. She's digging her own grave right now. He tells her to shut it and hurry up, and she has absolutely no idea how to process any of this. They make it to his place and the pain finally hits. She sprained her ankle running out of the karaoke building. She's limping around trying to convince herself she's fine, telling herself to just walk it off, but it's clear she's not going anywhere fast. Kurose watches her hobble for about 3 seconds before taking charge of the situation. The door opens and a little blonde girl is standing there staring at Meow like she just landed from space. Kurose pats the kid's head and says, "Beats me," when she asks who this stranger is, which is the most Kurose introduction possible. The girl introduces herself as Mitsuki. She's his elementary school sister. And Meow's brain adds yet another unexpected layer to the Kurose K puzzle. Mitsuki is immediately the cutest thing alive, asking if Meow is her brother's, with the most innocent expression imaginable. Kurose shuts that down instantly, orders Mitsuki to grab the first aid kit, and tells Meow he's only lending her the dryer before she needs to leave. Then he casually mentions she can use their bathroom, and Meow nearly combusts on the spot. So now Meow is standing in Kurose K's laundry room, her uniform spinning in his dryer, her feet bandaged, surrounded by his things. She's staring at his toothbrush, his bathroom, his entire domestic life, and she catches herself being way too aware of every detail. She screams internally that she's being a creep, and right on cue, Kurose appears behind her like a horror movie jump scare. But then she sees something that stops her brain cold. Kurose is wearing glasses. He's in casual clothes, hair slightly messy, looking softer than she's ever seen him at school, and the domesticity of it all hits her like a truck. Mitsuki runs in asking him to practice with her, and he says he can't because he's making dinner, and Miao realizes this intimidating boy at school is basically a housewife at home. Mitsuki is doing a play for her school festival, The Little Match Girl, and she needs someone to rehearse with. She begs Miao to be the match girl while she plays the villager, and Miao can't say no to those big pleading eyes. She agrees immediately, and just like that, she's sitting in Kurose-kei's living room doing an elementary school theater rehearsal. The practice is a disaster in the best way possible. Miao is reading her lines off the script, wooden as a board, and Mitsuki, who is apparently a perfectionist, keeps yelling at her to do it again. Kurose tries to help, but he's even worse, reading, "Would you like a match?" with all the emotion of a brick wall, and Mitsuki declares he's hopeless too. Kurose switches tactics and tries to coach Miao instead, telling her to visualize the scene. He leans close, describing the cold and the snow and the people passing by, and suddenly his face is right next to hers, whispering instructions into her ear. Her heart starts pounding so hard she can barely hear the words, and every thought in her head turns to static. Even so, he tells her gently, "You try to call them out." The closeness, the glasses, the soft voice coaching her through a children's fairy tale. It's the most intimate moment they've ever shared, and it's happening over a third grader's homework. Miao can barely stammer out a response, her face burning red, completely forgetting they're supposed to be rehearsing. Mitsuki calls it quits and apologizes to Miao for wasting her time, but she's clearly delighted to have had a practice partner. Miao tells the little girl that her brother takes practice seriously, and he's pretty cool for it, and Mitsuki's face lights up with the most genuine sparkle of admiration. This kid adores her big brother, and seeing that softens everything Miao thought she knew about Kurose. As Miao's leaving, Mitsuki asks for her line ID. This third grader already has a phone, and zero hesitation about making friends. Miao happily exchanges contacts, and Mitsuki's little sister energy forces even Kurose to walk Miao out, grumbling the whole time. He hands over her umbrella, she thanks him for everything, and they say a quiet, "See you at school," that carries way more weight than either of them acknowledges. Now, Miao's home, clutching her phone, and she can't stop thinking about texting him. She got his contact details through Mitsuki, and she's typed and deleted about 15 different messages. "Thanks for today. Send my regards to Mitsuki-chan. Sorry for intruding, but nothing feels right." Every attempt gets erased before she can hit send, and she's spiraling into overthinking mode. She finally snaps and just sends it, slamming the button before she can chicken out again. 10 minutes pass. Read at 7:10 p.m. Silence. She knew this would happen, she tells herself. What was she even hoping for? She's mid-meltdown, calling herself embarrassing, when her phone suddenly pings and she nearly throws it across the room. He replied. Kurose actually texted back, asking if tomorrow works because he wants to stop by after work. And he's calling her Karen-san, which means this message is about the night cafe. Miao's eyes go wide as she processes that he's not just acknowledging her text, he's making plans. And the casual domesticity of the whole exchange makes her chest tight. Riri checks in the next day, and the conversation drifts to where Miao actually ended up that night. She's vague about it, but Riri can tell something shifted. There's a warmth in Miao's voice that wasn't there before. The mixer was a disaster, the guy was a creep, but somehow the night ended with Miao at the home of the boy she supposedly can't stand. Back at school, the whispers haven't stopped. Everyone's noticed that Kurose and Miao have some kind of connection now. Her classmates tease her about being close with him, and she denies it with way too much energy. But the blush on her face tells a completely different story. Even Kurose's friends are starting to piece things together, asking pointed questions about whether Miao knows about his job. Kurose catches her staring at him in class again, and this time, instead of calling it creepy, he just looks back. There's something different in his expression. Not quite a smile, but the sharp edges are gone, replaced by something quieter. She looks away first, heart racing, and the distance between "I hate you" and whatever this is now feels like it collapsed overnight. The chapter ends with Miao walking home in the rain, replaying every moment from his house. The glasses, the cooking, the whispered coaching, Mitsuki's laughter, the way he carried her without being asked. She presses her phone to her chest and admits what she's been fighting since the lip gloss, since the night cafe, since the very first time he said her name. This feeling isn't going away, and she's not sure she wants it to. The chapter opens with Kurose staring at his phone, and for once the mystery isn't about Miao. It's about him. He's texting someone named Karen-san, asking to stop by after work tomorrow, and Miao happens to see the message over his shoulder at school. Her brain immediately spirals into the worst possible conclusion. Who is this woman, and why is Kurose meeting her privately? The rumor spreads through school like wildfire. Kurose has a girlfriend. His friends are losing their minds, muttering about how he got one before them, debating whether it's actually true. Miao overhears everything and can barely breathe. The words, "Kay has a girlfriend," echoing in her skull while she tries to convince herself she has no reason to care this much. But she does care, and the feeling sits in her chest like a stone she can't swallow. She tells herself she shouldn't have any reason to be curious about who this Karen person is, that it's none of her business. Then someone's stomach growls, one of Kurose's friends, and they notice there's a bakery right below the night cafe, which gives the whole group an excuse to show up at his workplace. Miao tries to stop them, insisting they shouldn't sneak up on Kurose at his job. He specifically told them not to come, but his friends are determined to ambush him, dragging Miao along despite her protests. She's internally apologizing to Kurose the entire walk there, knowing this is about to go very badly for everyone involved. They peek into the cafe and immediately lose it. Kurose, the guy who's never smiled at school, the human glacier, is standing there in his night costume greeting customers with a soft, "Welcome, princess." His friends can't believe what they're seeing, howling about how he's a completely different person at work, making him try the greeting again, just to watch him suffer. Then Karen appears, and Miao's heart drops through the floor. She's an older woman who works at the bakery downstairs, handing Kurose a bag of bread for the day, and she calls him Kei-kun with easy familiarity. Miao watches their interaction, the warmth, the casualness, and whispers to herself that this woman is really his girlfriend, the stone in her chest getting heavier. But then Karen mentions her husband, and Miao's entire reality inverts in half a second. The bakery is her husband's shop. Karen isn't Kurose's girlfriend. She's a married woman who's basically a friendly older sister figure at his workplace. Miao's face goes through about 17 shades of red as she realizes she jumped to the most dramatic conclusion possible over a bread delivery. Kurose walks out with Miao and calls the bakery owner, Hananashi-san, thanking her for the bread and sending regards to her husband. Miao is still processing the emotional whiplash when she notices how naturally Kurose moves through this world. The cafe, the bakery, the people who know him. There's a whole life here she never saw from their classroom desks. Karen pulls Miao aside, and the conversation takes a sharp turn. She tells Miao that Kurose doesn't have a dad, that he looks after Mitsuki, and that he chose the night cafe job specifically because it pays well with short shifts so he can be home for his sister. The lightness drains from the moment as Miao realizes the boy she's been bickering with has been carrying his family on his shoulders this whole time. Karen's voice goes cold as she adds one more thing. She apologizes for being harsh earlier, but it felt like Miao was making fun of someone she really cares about. The implication lands like a punch. When Miao first laughed at Kurose's night costume, she was mocking a job he took out of necessity and love. Miao's eyes fill with understanding and shame in equal measure. Riri gives Miao the simplest advice in the world. Just apologize. Miao stammers about whether it's really that easy, and Riri confirms with a thumbs up that yes, sometimes you just say sorry and mean it. The directness of it cuts through all of Miao's overthinking, and she finally has a clear path forward instead of spiraling in guilt. Miao finds Kurose after school, and the apology comes pouring out before she can second-guess it. She tells him she didn't know anything about his family's circumstances, that she laughed at his job without understanding why he does it, and that it was low of her to come to his workplace like that. Kurose listens in silence, then says, "Whatever," but his expression says he heard every word. He asks if she's the one who brought his friends to the cafe, and she admits it, apologizing again. He already knew, of course. Kurose always seems to know more than he lets on, but instead of being angry, he shifts the conversation to something completely unexpected, telling her the real reason he was shopping that day. He says the washing machine at home is broken, and he wanted to buy a new one himself. Miao blinks. A washing machine? That's what the errand was about? Kurose tells her matter-of-factly that he's not working at the night cafe for fun or pocket money. He's doing it because his family has financial issues, and every paycheck goes toward keeping their household running. The vulnerability of that admission hits Miao harder than any insult he's ever thrown at her. She's looking at a high schooler who cooks dinner, raises his little sister, works a part-time job in a costume he probably hates, and buys appliances with his own money. Everything she thought she knew about the cold, rude Kurose reshapes itself into something far more complicated and far more admirable. He walks her partway home in silence, and she catches herself staring at him, not with the usual nervousness, but with something deeper. He calls her out on it with his usual bluntness, saying she looks like a bore, and then turns and walks away before she can respond. She's left standing there thinking he's probably making fun of her, but something about this interaction feels different. Things at school start shifting in a way Miao wasn't prepared for. She's finally making friends in class. Girls are greeting her by name in the mornings, chatting with her at the lockers, and for the first time, she doesn't feel invisible. She opens her locker with a smile on her face, thinking maybe this chapter of her life is finally turning a corner. Then she finds the letter. It's addressed to Miao-san in handwriting she doesn't recognize, and for one wild second her heart leaps. Could this be a confession? Could someone actually like her? She unfolds the paper with trembling fingers, and the words hit her like ice water. "Get away from Kurose! I'll spill his secret if you tell him about this!" The threat is crystal clear. Someone knows about Kurose's night cafe job, someone is watching how close they've been getting, and someone wants her gone. Miao stares at the letter, her new friendships and fragile confidence suddenly feeling paper thin. The girl who spent her whole life wishing someone would notice her just discovered that the wrong person has been paying very close attention.